What if Japan had completed its atomic program before the US in 1945 and won the war? A century later, the world belongs to the Imperial Shogunate of the rising atom, a techno-samurai empire powered by living nuclear reactors, humans engineered to radiate energy for the state. When one of them, Aiko Rei, escapes her containment, she ignites a rebellion that threatens to unravel the Empire's power grid and its soul. Pursued by Commander Tatsu Kurogane, a loyal enforcer torn between duty and humanity, their confrontation will decide whether the world burns under tyranny or is reborn in freedom's light. Set in a dark, realistic, near-future Tokyo, Empire of the Rising Atom is a gritty, alternate history sci-fi epic where honor, rebellion, and technology collide in a world built on human power.
By 2045, 100 years after the rising sun crowned the world, Tokyo no longer slept. It hummed, an endless, careful hum that kept the oceans calm and the sky lanes bright. We called it peace. But peace in the Imperial Shogunate of the rising atom was a wire pulled tight between towers that breathed like steel lungs. The wire sang only because people like me were strapped to it. They called us Reicon, living reactors. Not robots, not saints. Human frames that could endure what uranium did to ordinary flesh. We were raised in white rooms and taught that duty tasted like clear water. No smell, no memory. I woke to sirens and the bitter taste of metal on my tongue. A hairline crack ran across the containment window. Someone had cut the seal from the outside. The resin still smoked. Beyond the glass, the holding sector stuttered red, then blue. I pulled the feed needles from my spine and felt the room tilt. Power rose under my skin like a fever I could not sweat out. Reactor 07 breach, the ceiling barked in a polite voice. Please remain calm as corrective measures engage. The door latch had been fused. By heat. By me. I didn't remember doing it. I pressed my palm to the seam. Metal softened and parted with a sigh, the way fruit opens when it's overripe. The corridor beyond was empty except for a drifting maintenance drone with a happy face sticker peeling from its shell. I ran, barefoot. Drips of coolant left pale footprints that hissed on the floor. At the lift, I hesitated, then remembered a story Dr. Haruto Sakai once told me to help me sleep. A lantern carried up a mountain. You are the lantern, he used to say. You are also the mountain. It had sounded like comfort. Now it felt like a warning. The lift doors opened to the smell of rain and city steam. I stepped into air not filtered for me, and it cut the inside of my chest. Somewhere above, in the propaganda sky, the Emperor's face drifted on a tier of neon. I could almost hear him. Peace through power, power through purity. The slogan hung like frost. I ran toward the dark. Commander Tatsu Kurogane didn't like ceremony, but ceremony liked him. The prosthetic hand that had saved him in the Singapore purge glinted as he clasped it behind his back, watching the skyline for a stutter only he would notice. He had learned to read the city the way you read a wounded friend, by the wince, not the scream. Commander, a young officer said, voice pitched too high. Sector 12 is reporting a reactor breach. ID tag 07. Reicon don't breach, Kurogane said. They are breached. He took a transport to Shinjuku, visor painting the power grid as a cathedral of blue veins. In the seat across from him sat Dr. Sakai, hair matted by rain, lab coat shoved into a field jacket like he had decided to be a different man on the ride over. "She's not like the others," Sakai said. "Higher tolerance. Higher cognition." "You ask me for a hunt," Kurogane said, without turning. "Not a confession." Sakai pressed a data wafer to his palm. It pulsed faintly, a heartbeat in plastic. "If you corner her, she'll spike. The grid will follow." The failsafes were never designed for a mind that refuses. Kurogane closed his fingers over the wafer. Prayer seals etched into his prosthetic clicked softly. "Then don't corner her." Outside, the rain thickened, blurring the line where tower became sky. Tokyo blinked, once, hard enough that every billboard rebooted. Kurogane felt the city's hum slip a fraction, as if a musician had missed a note. "She's here," he said, and she just breathed. I blended into the lower wards, where hawkers wore dosimeter pendants like good luck coins and synthetic eels swam lazy circles in radiation-proof tanks. Every few steps, my pulse surged and the streetlights bowed. Vendors cursed me without knowing. I found the Kannon shrine by smell, the incense long gone to ash, the pond a cracked mirror. A paper charm still clung to a lintel. "Banish hunger, welcome rain." I sat on the steps and tried to slow my core. It answered like a heart trapped under ice. Thud, thud, thud. A drone whirred through the Torii gate, polite as a clerk. "Citizen, identify." It saw my radiation bloom and changed its mind. Its voice flattened. "Reactor 07, surrender." I raised my hand. Not to kill, only to make it stop. Heat and light rippled up my forearm like someone turning pages of a book too fast. The drone's shell softened, sloughed, and fell in gray petals. The shrine smelled like hot pennies. Footsteps scraped. A man stepped out from behind the cracked Buddha. Lab jacket, bad knee. Dr. Sakai. When he smiled, his face tried to remember how. "You always came here after calibrations," he said. "You said the silence helped." "You made me say that." "No," he said. "I stole everything else, but that was yours." He handed me a capsule, thumb-sized, cold as the old pond. Every Raycon design, every chain. If the public sees this, the Shogunate's sacred power becomes a factory manual. Why give it to your escaped reactor? Because you're human enough to choose. His eyes shone, tired and honest. And because I am not brave enough to carry it to the end. A siren wound up, close. I closed my fist around the capsule and felt it convince my skin it was real. "Then I'll carry it." The Shogunate spoke through glass and water. Drones projected the Emperor's face on puddles. "Citizens," the voice said, "a saboteur threatens the warmth that keeps your children fed. Stay calm. Honor will be rewarded." I moved, hugging the shadow line where market canopies wept. People stared but didn't speak. A little girl pointed at my hands, where blue light leaked like moon milk between my fingers. Her mother bent and, carefully, almost respectfully, turned the child's face away. At the Kanda Junction, a squad of Imperial enforcers stacked up, red visors unnecessary in the day's gray glow. The sergeant's voice came clipped through mask speakers. "Reactor 07, this is a safety retrieval, not an arrest." Meal. Do not radiate. Do not radiate? I said, and couldn't help it. I laughed. It sounded like rubbing paper together. Then the ground jumped. Not from me, from the rails. A freight car's magnetic clamp failed, sending it skidding like a coin on a table. It smashed into a pillar with a groan that shook the bridge. People screamed. The enforcers looked at me, then at the wreck, then back at me like they couldn't do math anymore. "Move!" I shouted, pushing energy into a wall that wasn't there a second ago. The car lifted, weight turning to light for the heartbeat I could pay for it. Bodies slid free. I let the car fall where it would bend least. The sergeant's rifle came up, then down. He stared. The red visor reflected a ghost, a girl in scavenged clothes holding up a bridge. From a transport above, Kurogane watched the whole thing and didn't fire. "She saved them," his lieutenant said, confused like a child waking mid-dream. "She saved us," Kurogane corrected. "From the next order I would have given." He keyed open channel. "Aiko," he said, dropping the titles that made me a machine. "Aiko, we need to talk." We met on the lip of a reactor spire because neither of us trusted rooms with doors. Night cut the city into strips of neon and black. Rain hissed off heat that crawled across my skin. Kurogane removed his helmet and tucked it under his arm like it might bite. His face had seen more wars than the official history admitted. He looked at my hands, then the horizon, as if choosing which fire to admit first. "You didn't kneel," he said. "I already did. For years." He nodded, accepting the blow like a priest taking confession. "I saw your file," he said. "You were born in a coastal camp the year the typhoon ate Okinawa's north shore. Your mother died on intake. The record says you never asked where she went." "I asked," I said. "No one who answered used her name." Kurogane opened his prosthetic hand. I placed the capsule in it. The seals etched on the metal, old prayers for safe passage, for clean harvest, looked obscene around the thing that could pull an empire down. "If I broadcast this," he said, "the grid fails. Hospitals, air traffic, cold water to the slums. The poor eat the rich only when the power goes out. Then leave it dark long enough for them to see who flipped the switch," I said. "The shogunate told the world that I am a battery. I am also a witness. And if I refuse, then kill me," I said simply, "and keep the lights on a little longer." Something in his eyes shifted, not broken, but unsoldered. He looked small without the helmet, a man, not a weapon. "If I do this," he said, "the Emperor will activate Kaguya Protocol." "What is it?" "A sky ring," he said. "Hidden in the Ashikaga belt. Focused mirrors. They'll cauterize the grid from orbit and call it a miracle. They've always had a second sun ready. Then we aim first." At dawn, every screen in the Empire sprouted a second face. Kurogane's, pale and unreadable, and mine, blue-lit and shaking. The broadcast slotted itself under payroll notices and morning hymns. Kurogane spoke first. His voice was the kind used for bad orders. "Citizens of the rising atom, the light that warms you was taken from human bodies. The shogunate tells you this is purity. It is not. It is hunger. He held up the capsule. Here are the designs. Here is the theft. Terminals opened like mouths. Engineers who had whispered their doubts in boiler rooms saw their heresies become diagrams. Mothers whose children's hair fell out in factory dorms saw the Empire's power as bones, not blessing. Then the sky changed. Lines of white stitched themselves into a halo above Tokyo. Kaguya had woken. Daylight sharpened to a needle. Towers flashed, once, again. The grid, panicking, tried to drink from me like a famished animal. Haruto, I said into my throat mic. We need a mirror of our own. In a maintenance bay below, Dr. Sakai bared a panel none of his juniors believed existed. He had built it in his cowardly days, a sin and a gift. I can open a breach lattice, he said. It will bend the beam if someone can anchor it. I'll anchor it, I said. Your core was meant for this, I said. You told me I was a lantern. Let me be a lighthouse. Kurogane's visor painted the halo's arc. Aiko, he said. When it hits, redirect it to the Imperial grid control. Burn the throne room, not the slums. Understood. The first needle of light came down. I opened myself and took it. Heat arrived as a color first, white so bright it went silent. It lanced into me and through me. The lattice blossomed from the spire like a flower made of math. I pushed. The beam bent. The palace district bloomed with a sunrise too precise to be natural. Glass wailed. Power is a negotiator that refuses to shake hands. It asked for more. I gave more. The second beam drilled. The lattice trembled. My knees hit the grit. I smelled my own skin cook and thought of the girl at the market whose mother had turned her face away gently, like a blessing. Pulled back, Kurogane ordered, his voice breaking the training it had never failed before. That's enough. Enough never toppled an empire, I said, and smiled, because the line sounded like something from a cheap film. He choked on a laugh that was also a sob. Sakai's voice. Core integrity at 60. Aiko, if you keep taking it, you won't... I know. Something else woke then. Not in the sky. In me. Think of every city's night, all at once, taking one breath together. The grid wasn't a machine. It was a choir we had been forced to sing in. And when I sang back, the harmony locked. I can distribute, I said, surprised at the calm, as if reading a note I had written to myself years ago. Not explode. Diffuse. Sakai didn't answer for a beat that felt like the street before a parade. You mean, seed your output into the grid, across every endpoint. 1,000 tiny lanterns. Yes, I said. A city of fireflies instead of one sun. Kurogane understood first. You'll vanish, he said. Not die. Become everywhere. If I'm everywhere, I said, I can't be chained. He stepped close, rain hissing on the heat between us. He pressed his forehead to mine, an old soldier's benediction. Permission to be a traitor with you, he whispered. Granted, I said, and let go. The flare that rolled out of the spire was not a bomb. It was a migration. Power shed its armor and became light, small enough to live inside a wristwatch battery. Street lamps went dark, then blinked alive. Not from the grid, but from the gathered breath of 1,000,000 tiny fires. Planes banked and kept flying. Hospitals switched to something no manual could name, and the incubators never flickered. The palace burned, not to ash, but to outline. Its gold showed its shape, then stopped being gold. The emperor's screens went to snow. Somewhere, a bell made for earthquakes rang, and no one answered it. Silence came like a person sitting down beside you without asking. The rain ended because there was nothing left hot enough to argue with it. Tokyo lived, not bright, not obedient, alive. On the spire's platform, only 2 figures remained. Kurogane stood, visor cracked, breathing like he'd run a war uphill. At his feet lay a chrysanthemum, white as ash and pulsing faintly blue. It warmed the metal through his boots. "Aiko?" he asked the flower, feeling ridiculous and correct. Every street light on the block brightened once in answer. The little dosimeters around necks flashed a soft teal. The market's eel tanks sang a chord no human ear was designed for, but everyone felt the note in their teeth and called it hope. Sakai limped out onto the platform. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the toolkit he had carried for 20 years like a penance. He knelt where I had knelt and touched the silver scorch in the shape of my hand. "I taught them to lie to you," he said to the air. "Thank you for not learning it." Kurogane stared at the city. "Kaguya?" he asked. "Shut down," Sakai said. Her mirrors cracked under the redirect. "It will take years to rebuild, and there will be no one left to order it." "Someone will try," Kurogane said. Empires were like that, too proud to stay dead, too stupid to stop trying. He opened the prosthetic. The capsule lay there, dim now, like a spent seed. "We give them a better grief." He keyed a narrow-beam broadcast, local and low, too small for a regime, perfect for a neighborhood. "Citizens," he said, voice hoarse and human. "The grid belongs to the people who breathe under it." The Raycon were people. They still are. You will find them in your lamps and your batteries and the warmth of your tea. Treat them as neighbors you can't invite to dinner, but you can speak their names. Lights across the ward blinked in a slow wave. 1, 2, 3. Like an audience that didn't know how to clap yet, but wanted to learn. Sakai touched the chrysanthemum. "What now?" Kurogane lifted his helmet and didn't put it on. "Now we lose for a while," he said. "That's how real revolutions start. With logistics and funerals." He looked at the flower. "And with a guide." A motion ad board across the street, dead since the flare, coughed and lit. Not an emperor, a child's chalk drawing. A lantern on a hill, stick figures climbing toward it. Beneath, 3 characters appeared in a shaky hand no machine would forge. "Aiko is home." The city breathed out. Somewhere in the slums, a kettle clicked and boiled on a stove that had never known the grid. In the palace ruins, the last unburned banner gave up and fell. Night came honest for the first time in a century. It came with stars, not logos. People pointed and named them wrong and loved the errors. Down on the street, a girl tugged her mother's sleeve and held up her pendant. The dosimeter glowed soft blue. "Mama," she said, "the light is humming." "Listen," the mother said, and everyone did. The hum wasn't the old tight wire, stretched and cruel. It was thousands of small notes finding each other. It was a city of lanterns choosing, together, to be bright. And somewhere in all of it, in the tea and the eel tanks and the wristwatches, a voice like rain on metal whispered names it had not been allowed to remember. The voice knew the words for mountain and lantern and home. It learned new ones: neighbor, refuge, beginning. The empire would try to rise again. Power rarely retires. But the first thing the old men would discover, standing under a sky that finally belonged to the weather, was that their wires had been turned into songs. And songs are harder to chain.